Welcome to episode 54 of Uncovering the Corners of the World podcast. I'm your host, Karina Kasmala. Using research and my personal experiences, where I actually set foot in some of these places, I'll be describing some of the unknown attractions in both the US and around the world. This episode is a road trip to Kelleys Island in Ohio, with some of the places I didn't mention in episode 45. Titled Ohio Wineries, Crystal Cave, and Glacial Grooves on the Islands. These are first-hand accounts from a recent trip, some places you'll find when you're traveling that you might not have previously known about, mixed in with some historical information from various sources. Kelleys Island sits on Lake Erie and measures 4 by 2 miles, or approximately 28 acres. Kelleys Island is about 3.5 miles away from the Marblehead Peninsula. The island may be small, but it's the second largest island on Lake Erie, and there is plenty of places to explore on the island. There is no internet service, and there isn't any cell service on the island, which gives you a chance to enjoy the beauty of nature on Kelleys Island without the distractions. In order to get to the island, you'll need to purchase a ticket for the ferry. The Kelleys Island Ferry provides ferry service to those traveling by car and those traveling on foot. Once you buy your ticket for the ferry in downtown Marblehead, make sure you grab a map of Kelleys Island. One specific characteristic that I noticed about Kelleys Island is that once you exit the ferry, almost everyone travels by golf cart or bicycle. Near every restaurant or store, you'll see lines of golf carts. Every road takes you to a hidden gem of the island, such as the Kelleys Island Airport or the downtown center of the island. Our first attraction on Kelleys Island covers the northern shore, and it is the Kelleys Island State Park. Standing on one edge of the island, you can see in the faint distance another island. That island is most likely Kelleys Island in Canada. There are 3 trails in the state park: the North Shore Alver Loop Trail, the North Pond Nature Preserve, and the East Quarry Trail. On the North Shore Alver Trail, you'll come across grooves in the ground that expose barren limestone or dolomite, giving the appearance of a rugged, cracked earth. The grooves in the limestone were created by glaciers that floated from Canada to Ohio about 18,000 years ago. The Alver in the trail name refers to the rare plants that can be found on the trails, such as the purple flowers called the northern bog violet, or the small vivid yellow flowers called the balsam squawweed. The North Pond Nature Preserve Trail is less rough than the North Shore Alver Loop Trail. On the boardwalk, you'll walk along a collection of diverse plants and animals, such as the swamp rose mallow, bulrushes, and pond lilies. Our next attraction is located at 114 Leyland Lane, and it's known as the Charles Herndon Gallery and Sculpture Garden. Charles Herndon is an artist, specifically a sculptor, whose art can be found in galleries throughout the United States, from Washington, D.C. to Hawaii. A dirt path cuts through a forest and passes through different sculptures throughout the garden. Herndon's artwork includes tactile stone and metal abstract structures, as well as molded concrete artwork that praise the woman's body. Concrete women figures can be seen basking in the sunlight or standing firmly with a broom. Some of the stone structures represent animals, such as birds, or they represent pieces of the body, such as the head or the torso. The stones that he uses for his work are tied to the island's history, since the stones were found on the island. He uses hand tools and abrasives to cut through the stone and reform it, to not only craft a new piece, but enhance the natural beauty of the stone itself. Inside the small gallery adjacent to the garden, you'll find more of Herndon's artwork, including sketches of animals and illustrations of geometric shapes. You'll also find information about the Kiwanis International Foundation's Medal of Valor that Herndon was awarded in 2008 after he rescued a young boy who was crying for help in Lake Erie after a plane crash. Our last attraction takes us to Kelleys Island History Museum. The island holds exhibits that explain the island's history, from its fishing techniques to the diseases that its residents had. A commercial fishing and Kelleys Island Navy are some of the exhibits you can find inside the museum. During the 1850s, fishermen used a large net called the pound net that captured various fish like the lake herring, lake trout, and lake whitefish from Lake Erie. Another interesting exhibit is one that explains how electricity was brought to the island. Candles were used in the 1850s before people switched over to oil lamps. During this time, people stored their foods, specifically their meats, in a small building that was filled with ice. These ice boxes were the refrigerators of that time. Another exhibit on the island described the first doctors that lived there, like Dr. Jane E. Spaulding, who was a surgeon and a homeopathic physician in 1866. Outside the museum, sometimes you might come across the Arts and Crafts Show, where various artists show their crafts such as quilts and glass blowing techniques. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you want to learn more about Kelleys Island State Park, be sure to visit the website ohiodnr.gov on Kelleys Island. If you're curious about the Charles Herndon Gallery and Sculpture Garden, check out the website charlesherndon.com. Lastly, if you want to learn more about the Kelleys Island History Museum, check out the website kelleyislandhistorical.org. Have a great week.